Hello, everybody. So when we go up to our tactical battle rifle, our custom weapon, you can see on the HUD, it gives us the prompt to pick it up. It says hold E to swap for, then it has the battle rifle icon. However, this is not really reflective of the actual model we have. You can see that the icon has that standard battle rifle scope, and our battle rifle has the uh, the holographic sight, of course. And when we pick it up, you can see on the bottom left it says picked up a battle rifle, and that's not super reflective of our weapon either, because we want to differentiate between this battle rifle and our own custom battle rifle. The other thing is that also on the top right on the HUD, the heads up display, it also has that standard battle rifle icon. So we really want to change this to make our battle rifle different from the vanilla standard battle rifle. In the previous video, we did a bit of that, where we made our own custom ammo meter. So when I shoot, the ammo meter's working as it's supposed to. So how do we change these HUD messages, and how do we change the icon on the top right above the ammo meter? Well, uh, the first thing we need to do is we can just kind of close out of Sapien for now. We don't really need it. This is actually going to be a little bit more complicated than you might think, and you'll see why as we go through this. So, what we want to do is that we want to make our own icons. That's the obvious first step. So one thing we can do is that we can extract, just to use as a reference, the weapon icons that already exist in the game. I've already done that. I have the weapon schematics texture. Wow, you cannot see a thing. Let me open it up in paint.net. Let me add a new layer under it and make it fully black. So here are the icons specifically for the ammo meter, the icon above the ammo meter. And this might be a little bit of a surprise, but I have here a list. And as far as I can tell, there are actually 4 different versions of the icon for each weapon in the game. So we are going to be creating all 4 of these so they work correctly, or work as expected. So I'm going to show you how we can extract these vanilla icons. We need to approach this with different methods depending on which version of the icon we are extracting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this weapon schematic .tiff image, which is going to be the easiest one to get. And of course we're going to do that with Reclaimer. Now one thing is that Reclaimer did in fact receive an update recently. The most recent update is 1.7.310, so you might want to update to that. However, I don't think that I think 1.7.309 can still open the most recent map files, so you should still be good, but you might as well just upgrade anyway, just to be safe. So I'm going to open up a random map, and I know that this I know the bitmap tag that stores this is going to be weapon schematics.tiff. So I can just type in weapon schematics, and here under the bitmap folder it gives me the exact image I want. You can hardly see anything, and that's because the alpha channel is being shown. You can see there's we get these weird blocks, but if I turn off any of these other channels, that's when you can actually see them. But what we want to do is that we want to export all channels. We want to make sure that we get the RGB and A channels, every single one of them. So I'm going to save it to my desktop, and I already have it saved, but I'll just replace it anyway. And I can just close out of that. And now so we got this icon, but we want to get these three other ones, and this is getting a little bit into the sort of strangeness of the Halo game engine. I understand why they did it this way, but at the same time it makes it a lot harder to add new weapons. But after you watch this, after we go through this, you're gonna understand everything you need to know. So I don't want to make it sound too scary because it really isn't. So let's we need to use a program, and this is the program right here. It's called Font Packager. So you're probably wondering, why are we dealing with fonts? That's kind of, why. Well, icons, these icon specifications right here, the icons are actually treated as characters in a font set or in a font package. So that's why we have to deal with fonts. So I'm going to do File, Open Collection, and Font Package. We want to open a font package, and we can find the font packages that we need in the Halo 3 Editing Kit directory, and it's going to be in the Maps folder, and then you're going to see a Fonts folder. And here are a ton of font packages. So for now, the ones we really need to worry about, the ones we're going to worry about in this video are going to be the font package.bin, font package x2, and font package x3. You may be kind of tempting to do these icons, and I'm pretty sure if I click on this one and I go to maybe HUD, we are going to see the weapon icons here, but to be honest, I don't really know why these icons are here, like these icon font packages. I'm not sure exactly what those are for, but the changes we're going to make are going to be to these regular just font packages. So I'm going to open up the first one. And you can see here that in my list, I have these all spelled out Conduit 18. Because Conduit 18 is this font right here in the list that actually has the weapon icons. So what we want to do now is that it depends on what weapon you're using. Really the only reason we're extracting these is just to use them as a reference as we create our own weapon icons. Since the battle rifle is the obvious choice here, I'm going to extract the battle rifle icon. And you do that by right-clicking on it, and you just do save selected, there's a typo in the program, save selected character as, and I'm going to just save it to my desktop. Now I'm going to save it as this Conduit 18x1 because this is the font package we have open is just the regular icon, or not the icon, the regular font package. The X2 and the X3 are you'll just see. So I'm just going to call this BR X1. And it should appear on our desktop now. There it is. Now you're probably thinking why there's these different, basically, so the difference between the font packages, the regular font package, so this is font package, and then I have X1, then there's going to be font package X2 and X3. The reason why there's three different versions of essentially the same font package is because these are used for different resolutions, screen resolutions. So if you have like a 4K monitor or whatever, it may use the font package X3 because that allows for more detail. But next I'm going to open the font package X2, and I'm going to select Conduit 18 again, and it's the same exact font but with larger characters. So I'm going to select the battle rifle, save selected character as. I'm going to save that to my desktop as BRX2. Save. And just do X3 now. So we'll do font package, go back to the fonts folder, font package X3. And this is even bigger. And we want to find the battle rifle here. So I'll do save character as and BRX3. I'll save that as PNG. Okay, we can close out of this font packager stuff for now. We won't need it for a little bit. Now, you may also, so I have this stuff listed out here. So when we make our own custom icon, we're going to be creating it in the highest resolution, so we can just simply scale down the same image over and over again. And as you can see, as I have listed out here, the X2 is going to be 2/3 or 66% of the Conduit 18 times 3 size. The Conduit 18 times 1 size is going to be 1/3 or 33% of the resolution of the times 3. And the HUD schematic is going to be 50% the resolution of this highest resolution here. And we can see that, I think in this folder I have this BR schematic, just so you can see this here. If I'm going to open up the properties window here of this BRX3, and we go to details, you can see that dimensions are, this is basically, I'm just going to say 444 pixels, and the HUD schematic is going to be 50%, so we're going to expect that to be 222 pixels. And if we open up the properties of this, it should say 222 pixels right there. So that's what I mean by these different sizes listed out. So this is generally the rules that you're going to want to follow when you create your own custom icons. The highest resolution is of course going to be 100% of its size. The second highest resolution, which is going to be Conduit 18x2, is going to be 2/3 of x3 size, and you can see so on and so on. So I'm going to keep this list handy here so we can reference it in the future. So let's get to actually making our icons. So a really easy way to set this up is to get a reference image of our custom weapon. And of course we're going to do this in Blender because we have a 3D model of our custom weapon. So I'm going to delete everything in Blender. I'm going to minimize it here just a second because I want to get my original JMS file for the tactical battle rifle. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to open up the blend file that I did. So you just want to open up the 3D model, basically, of your custom weapon. You want it basically ready to go. now we're going to basically generate a reference image of our 3D model here. So one thing we can do is definitely just hide all these markers. They're just going to get in our way. We also want to disable them in the render. And if you don't have this camera option here, you go up here to this filters icon, and you want to make sure that this camera icon is blue, because that toggles it out of the outliner. So I'm going to disable those from the render as well, and I'm also going to disable the armature, which is the bones. I'm going to disable that in the viewport and disable it in the render. So now we just have our gun, just the model. So to generate a reference image, we're going to need a camera. So I'm going to go to my back orthographic view. I'm going to add a camera. And as you can see, the camera is super small. So I'm going to drag it out quite a bit. Actually, you can drag it out. You don't really have to drag it out too far, to be honest. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating an orthographic projected image. So it really doesn't matter how far away your camera is, as long as it is kind of pointing toward your object. Next, we want to figure out the dimensions of our reference image. So since this is basically a variant of the battle rifle, all I'm going to do is that I'm just going to make my reference image the same dimensions of that highest resolution battle rifle icon. So I'll look at the properties again of this BRX3 icon, 444 by 123. So I'm just going to plug those numbers here into the output properties. So X was 444 pixels and Y was 123 pixels. So now we have the correct resolution. But we also need to actually set up our camera so it's encompassing the full battle rifle. Now, we should just go ahead and set this to orthographic. And in fact, let's go back to the back orthographic view, because that will help us position this camera better. And one more thing we should do here in this camera properties, just to make this a bit more legit, is let's turn this background images thing on, and let's add an image. And we're going to open up that BRX3. So when we look into the camera, we're going to see that image, and we can line up our 3D model to this image so it matches a bit more. So I'm going to set the depth to front, so it's in front of our 3D model. And I'm going to set the opacity down just a bit as well, so we can see the 3D model a bit more clearly. Now we can start moving the camera around. And I'm going to turn snapping off, so we have just a bit more control, so we don't have like these awkward snap. That's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I'm just going to turn snapping off anyway. Kind of get it as centered as I can. And then here in the orthographic scale is where I want to adjust this, because that's going to zoom out the camera until it's about the size we need it to be. So let's try this. And we can zoom it out a bit more. Let's try 39. That's looking fine. I don't like how close the top of this holographic side is to the top here of the image bound, so I'm going to set this to 40. And I'm going to kind of center it as best I can. Maybe I'll do 42. And as you can see, our reference image is now a lot larger than the 3D model, but this is really totally fine. This is a very abstract part of the process. Nothing has to be perfect. You just do it to what you think is right, and I do want to make sure that there's enough space up here between the holographic sight and the bounds, as well as the bottom of the grip. Okay, so we can turn off background images now. So one more thing we need to do, this is going to make our reference image so much more useful, is that the battle rifle is a pretty dark weapon, so it's really hard to see some finer details. So one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Render Properties, and I'm going to set the render engine to Workbench. And now we've totally lost our textures, but that's okay, because what we're going to do next is we're going to go to Viewport Shading up here, and we're going to set lighting to flat, but we're going to set the color to texture. So now we can kind of see the finer details. In fact, I might actually go back to Studio. Yeah, so now we can see, so since it's giving us the normal map textures, and the reason why that is, I'll show you, is if I go into Shader Editor, and I need to select the battle rifle, I'm just going to select a random material. I'll select this battle rifle metal material. If I select an image node here, the texture is going to change to whatever image node I've selected. So I'm going to select the battle rifle bump, and that's going to give me back the normal map. So that's why it's giving us the normal map texture, and we want to keep the normal map because the normal map is what it's what gives the gun really its detail, and we want to see those details. So now we pretty much have our reference image. We can render this out now. So let's render image. And there is our reference that we can use. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to save it on my desktop so it's easy to get to. I'm going to save this as BRT reference. Save it however you want to. And we're done in Blender now, so the next thing we can do is we can open paint.net and we can kind of create our actual icon. I'm not going to save the blend file because we really don't need it. I'm going to use paint.net. Probably the best practice would be to use a vector image editing software like Inkscape. That way you can scale up your image up and down as much as you want to and you're not going to lose quality. However, I'm very familiar with paint.net, so I'm just going to use it, and I don't anticipate creating an icon larger than the BRX3. So I'm going to select this BRT reference image. I'm going to open with paint.net. And here we have our reference image. Now, one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the BRX3 image in paint.net as well. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to use the same colors as the vanilla icon. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use an add-on that I have in paint.net. I mentioned it in the previous tutorial. It's, I believe, BoltBait's pack that comes with this tool right here, Switch Alpha to Gray. And I want it to invert so the whites are The whites when it was still had alpha was white, and the alpha just turns black. The reason I'm doing this is to make it a lot easier to see and to make it a lot easier to blend the different layers together when we get to this part. So now I can sample these colors, and this color is going to be full white, as you can see. Full white on the colors. So let's create, in our reference image, let's create a new layer, and we can call this outside border. You can name it whatever you want to, doesn't really matter. I am going to set the opacity down just a little bit though, so I can still see the reference image beneath it. But before we get to drawing this out, I do want to show you one more thing. I'm going to open up the BR schematic image in paint.net. And I'm going to give that, just do a black background here. One thing you may notice, well, first of all, the colors are quite different. In fact, let me do that same exact thing. So this is very, as I said earlier, this is pretty abstract. You can approach this however you want to. There's really no correct way of doing this. You'll notice that the battle rifle icon used in the font has a much brighter body than the one that's used on the HUD. One other thing is that you'll notice that the icon used for the HUD has quite a bit more detail. It has these triangles here that are on the battle rifle, but the one used in the icon does not. If you want to make it look as vanilla as possible, your mod to look as vanilla as possible, this is just something to keep in mind. You know, the schematic icon may have more details than the font. Or the font may have brighter colors than the schematic. Just to make things kind of more, just to make things faster for this tutorial, I think I'm just going to use the colors for this, and I'm going to keep everything the same amount of detail. So I'm actually going to sample this color. I'm going to sample the brightest color, and as you can see, it's actually not full white. But I'm going to start, and I'm going to start creating the outline. And one other thing is that you'll notice the brightest white is used for the outside outline, and then you have a gray, which is used for the details that are not on the outside, and then of course the dark gray that's used for basically the body. So I'm going to actually start doing this icon here. So I'm just going to pick the line tool, and I'm just going to create an outline, and you can follow along however you want to. One more thing I should point out is that the outline, typically you want the outline here, the outside lines to be a bit thicker than the inside lines, just to make the outline pop a bit more. So, let's see, I'm going to see how thick. Okay, so that's probably about as thick as we want the outside line. So I'm thinking of using brush width of 2 for the outline, and then a brush width of 1 for the smaller lines on the inside. So, good, figured that out. Figured out what I want to do here. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Okay, I have the outline done. So now I'm going to work on the finer details on the gun. So I'm going to select this kind of more darker gray color here and create a new layer that's going to be underneath the outside border layer. And I'm going to call it details and set its opacity down so I can see the reference image. And I'll get started on this one. So I'm pretty much done with the detail layer here. I am going to clean up a bit more of these corners with the eraser tool, but I decided not to add the triangles because I think that would just add a little too much detail. It would just make it look a little too busy, in my opinion, so I'm going to leave those out. But after I clean these corners up a little bit, I'm going to move on to the final layer, which is going to be the kind of the body, the background, this darker gray. So I'm going to move on to that. Okay, pretty much done now. I'm going to delete this reference layer here, and I want to keep the rest of these. Now, so we converted the alpha layers in these images to grayscale. For our image, we are going to convert the grayscale to alpha, so we're going to get our alpha image. But the first thing we need to do is you want to make sure that all of your layers are set to full opacity, because that's going to make your colors darker than they should be if they're not set to full opacity. And now I'm just going to image and then flatten, and that will merge all the layers together. And now I'm going to go do, let's see, object, and switch gray to alpha this time. This, again, is provided by that paint.net plugin. And I want to select, instead of white, I want to select black. And we pretty much have our schematic. We can save this. Let's save this as let's save this as BRT X3 because this is going to be our largest resolution. And save it as 32-bit. Now if we go back to our list here, we want for our X2, we want to reduce it by 66%. So I'm going to go to image, resize, and then by percentage, I'm going to type in 66, and I wonder if it'll allow, yeah. Oh, maybe it won't allow decimals. Okay, whatever. So 66%. And I'm going to save this as BRTX2. Save that as 32-bit. Now I'm going to undo that resize change, so then I can do the 50%, which is going to be the schematic. BRT schematic, and the schematic we want to save as a TIFF. We can save the ones that are going to be used as a font as PNG, but we do want to save this as a TIFF, just the schematic, because the schematic is not going to be added through fonts, it's going to be added as a bitmap tag. And to convert an image to a bitmap tag, it has to be a .tiff file. So I'll save that, save it as 32-bit. Now I'll undo that change, and we'll do the final one. So resize, and we're going to do 33% this time. And I'm going to save this as a PNG, and this will be BRT X1 this time. And save it as 32-bit, and we're done. We just have a mess now. Let's delete these weapons, these like source files that we've been using, since we don't need them anymore. It'll clear off space. We can, if you have, this is a paint.net backup file. Can delete that too. Oh, well. Skip. That's already been deleted automatically, so if we refresh, that's going to be gone. So we have our weapon icons now, so we can actually add them into Halo 3. So I'm going to get rid of this list as well, since we're done here. Alright, let's actually start importing our icons. I'm just going to close out of paint.net so it's out of our way. Now, best practice would be to probably undo all this so you have all your layers back, and then save this as a PDN file, a paint.net file, so you basically have your working file, so if you ever need to return to it and make changes, you can, but for the sake of time, and the sake of this just being an example tutorial, I'm not going to worry about it, so I'm just going to close out and not save anything. Again, bad practice, but whatever. Okay, so the first one we're going to import is going to be the easiest one. That's going to be BRT schematic, which is going to be the icon that is shown on the HUD when you're holding the gun, or when the gun is on your back. So let's import this in. So I'm going to open up the H3EK, and we're going to be messing in the data folder because that's where we import everything. So I'm going to go to Graphics, UI, HUD, bitmaps, and then right next to our BRT meter, I'm going to put the BRT schematic. And just to be safe, I'm going to make sure that that's where the schematics actually go. I mean, again, this is abstract. It doesn't really... It depends on how you want to structure your tags folder, but I want to structure my tags folder as normal. So I'm going to make sure that the weapon schematics folder is in the HUD bitmaps. So I'm going to go back to my mod folder, UI, HUD, bitmaps. Oops, I'm still in my tags folder. I meant to go to my data folder. Actually, let's open up tool. Let's go to the H3EK root directory and let's open up tool. So CMD. Now we're going to import this bitmap. So let's go back to the data folder. Graphics, UI, HUD, bitmaps. And there we go. So the command we're going to use is going to be bitmaps underscore single, and then we want to specify the path to our BRT schematic.tiff. So that's going to be graphics /UI chud/bitmaps, and then brt schematic.tiff. Oh, I misspelled bitmap single. It's not supposed to have an S in it. It's supposed to just be singular. I forgot about that. And I must have spelled my file incorrectly, which I absolutely did. See, it said failed to read image B schematic, because it's not B schematic, it's BRT schematic. Okay, great. 1-bitmaps imported as diffuse map. Okay, we've created our schematic bitmap tag. So let's attach this to the CHUD definition. So I'm gonna open up Sapien so we can see the change in real time. I'm gonna open up a map that's less intense than Space Camp. I'll do chill out. Ideally, you want to do this in tag test. However, I actually have no idea how to use tag test, so I'm just using Sapien. Let's open up chill out. And as we're waiting for that to load, we can just open up Gorilla. We can just start making our changes. So let's go to UI, CHUD. Let's open up the battle rifle TAC CHUD definition. And one thing is that we're probably going to want to re-import the schematic, because we're not really going to want to use it as a diffuse map. We're going to probably want to use it as a CHUD map. So I'm going to, just for reference, I'm going to open up the weapon schematics bitmap tag and see how it's set up. And as a matter of fact, it is a CHUD related bitmap. So I'm just going to open up the schematic bitmap, and I'm going to change this to a CHUD related bitmap and re-import bitmap. And 1-bitmap imported as CHUD related bitmap. Great. Awesome. So this BRT schematic.bitmap should be all done, should be complete. So I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to close out the weapon schematics bitmap as well. So we just have the CHUD definition tag. Now, it's going to be the place we want to put our schematic is going to be in two different places from running off of memory. It's going to be put in the ammo area, and it's going to be put in the backpack area. So let's do the ammo area first. And as of right now, yeah, chill out is loaded, so let's drop in our tactical battle rifle into Sapien. So I'm going to open up objects, items, weapons, add a new weapon, and then we need to add the tactical battle rifle to the map scenario. So I'm going to go to my graphics folder, battle rifle tac, add it, done, cool, and then set that to battle rifle tac. Extend the window up, and when we pick it up, great. This is where we want to be at this moment in time. Huh. It's weird he's not following me around. Okay. Alright, so let's go back into Gorilla, and let's change our schematic. So this is going to be all the way down until we get to meter. This is what we did last time. We want to change... Okay, no, not that. I scrolled down too far, I believe. right here, bitmap widgets, we want to set this to schematic. Now the divider, I believe, is just right there with the maximum ammo, like the 24, and the icon. That line right there, I'm pretty sure is the divider. That would make sense to me, but we're not going to worry about the divider. Let's do schematic. And now we can scroll down. And here we have UI, HUD, bitmaps, weapon schematics, bitmap. This is what we want to change. So we're going to click on this button with the 3 dots. And we're going to find our schematic, our BRT schematic bitmap. Oh, I went in the wrong folder. It's going to be in UI. HUD, bitmaps, BRT schematic. Open that up. Since our bitmap doesn't have sequences, can probably just set that to 0. And let's save it. Now we should see that. And as you can see, there we go. The icon is correct. It is on the HUD. However, when we when we swap to our assault rifle, how do I do that? There we go. It changes back to the typical battle rifle. And that's because we need to change it on the backpack as well. So let's go back to Gorilla. And let's scroll back up to bitmap widgets. Nope. Let's scroll all the way up to backpack. And now let's scroll back down, and I think the backpack should only have the schematic. Yeah, the backpack only has schematic. So we can scroll back down, and let's change this. Scroll all the way back down again. Bitmaps. We want to change UI, see how the weapon schematic bitmap to the to our bitmap again. BRT schematic, and we can just set the sequence index to 0. Save it. Now when we go back into Sapien, when we swap to our assault rifle, it's showing us the correct icon. So, awesome. So, we have successfully changed the HUD icon. Let's actually make it to where when we pick up the battle rifle tac, that it shows us the correct icon and it tells us that we picked up the tactical battle rifle. So let's get into that. I'm going to close out of Sapien. And I'm going to close out of Gorilla too. And we can close out of Tool as well. Let's just get a clean slate here. Doing the HUD messages is a little bit trickier. The biggest issue with it is that we actually have to modify vanilla tags, which is why one of the reasons it's very important that you want to keep data.zip and tags.zip even after you've extracted them. That way, if you make any changes to vanilla tags, especially changes you don't mean to make, that you can just extract that file from the tags.zip or data.zip. So, of course, we need to add our different icons to the different font packages. So we're going to do that first. So let's start by putting our icons into the fonts, into those 3 different fonts I mentioned earlier. We're going to open up Font Packager again, and we want to open a collection, Font Package. Now let's find the fonts again in the Maps folder, Fonts, and the first one we're going to modify is we're going to modify font package.bin. Let's open that up. And we're going to add our icon to conduit 18. So let's scroll down all the way. Now, the way we're going to add this is that this is a very important thing to take note of. I believe the Unicode, as you can see here when I hover on the AutoMag icon, it says Unicode E144. That's going to be, that number is going to be very important. Now, when we add our own schematic, we're going to add it as an E145. Now, I believe that this Unicode is in hexadecimal format. So let's say you add, like, just for the sake of example, 100 different weapons, and you're going to add 100 different weapon icons. You're going to need to count this number up in hexadecimal. So when you get to like E149, you're not going to go to E150, you're going to go to E14A, and then E14B, and so on and so on. So we're going to add our weapon as E145, since that's just the next number up on the weapon, or the, like, this UI Unicode. I'm not counting these because these are actually farther up. So this icon here is F001, F002. So there's quite a big gap between the AutoMag icon and this icon. So I'm going to right click here in this empty space, and I'm going to click Add New Character. And as I said earlier, we're going to add this as E145. So we're going to type E145, import, and we're going to get our BRTX1 icon here. Open that up. Ooh, that's quite a bit darker, isn't it? For the sake of this tutorial, that's fine, but as you can see, it's been added as E145. Now, when we add the other icons to the different, like the X2 font and the X3 font, it's very important that the Unicode for the X2 and X3 BRT is going to be the same E145, so it doesn't pick a random, one that you don't expect. So we want to save this now, so let's file, save as target format, and let's save it on our desktop for now. We're going to move it into our H3EK folder later, but let's just save it to our desktop. And it's been saved successfully, so now let's open up the X2. So font table, H3EK, maps, fonts, sorry, not font table, font package. So H3EK, maps, fonts, and then the font package x2.bin. Now let's go to conduit 18. And when we scroll all the way down, let's do the same thing we did. Let's do add new character. This is going to be E145. Import it. We're going to select the X2 icon, BRT X2. It's been added. We can save this now. File, save as target format. Let's save it to the desktop as font package x2. Save. And let's do it finally for font package x3. So let's open up that font package. Conduit 18. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom. Let's add our character. We're going to add it as E145. import that, x3, and great. Let's save that. Save as target format. Okay. Now, don't close out a font packager because we're going to need it again in just a little bit. Let's just minimize it. Let's get it out of the way for now. So, how do we change the HUD messages to use our icon? Well, the best way I know to do it, there's a way you can do it in assembly, and then there's a way you can do it with the mod tools. And I'm going to show you the way with the mod tools, because I think it's the best way to do it. So, let's open up Gorilla here. And I'm going to show you why it's not as easy as you would think to change the messages. So I'm going to close out of the Battle Rifle TAC HUD definition. And I'm going to find those HUD messages. That's going to be under UI, HUD, I believe. Yep, HUD messages. And you can see here the text that is for, I think that's for the energy sword. So it's going to be plasma sword pickup, and it's going to say hold. And it has this really confusing bit right here to pick up, and then another really confusing bit. And if we try to change this string reference here, let's try something different. So plasma pistol swap AI, and we change to that. You'll notice all of these offsets have changed, but the text here hasn't really changed. And this is a just very strange... I don't really understand why it does this, but yeah, this is just kind of weird. So we're going to just ignore this. And another thing I want to show you here is if we go back to our mod tags folder and we open up the battle rifle tactical weapon, there are references to BR pickup, BR swap, BR picked up, whatever. And these right here are referring to let's open this up. So these strings right here are referring to the ID. These are IDs. So this is kind of a strange, like, hard-coded thing with the game engine, where the tags, like, this is a global tag. Like, every single tag knows that this HUD messages.multilingual Unicode string list is the tag that needs to be referred to when it sees this. So that's why there's not exactly a reference, like a clear reference to this tag. And I could be wrong about this. There may be a way to where you can have something listed as like HUD messages new or HUD messages modded, where you have all your modded strings in a separate tag, and then you're able to somehow reference that tag instead. But if that's the case, I don't know that, and I don't know how to do that. If I do figure that out, then I will make a video about that, clearing that up. But so how do we make changes to this? What we need to do is that we basically need to use tool to recompile this tag using a file that we write in Notepad. And when I mean Notepad, I'm talking about this program right here. Just your simple Notepad. So I'm going to close out of Gorilla for now. And I don't think that there's a tool command to extract the strings from that multilingual Unicode string list tag. Luckily, somebody has actually dumped all of the strings for us from assembly, and right here is the GitHub page for that. And of course, I'll link this in the description. So I'm going to go to, we only need, this is a dump of every single multilingual string list, I believe. There might be some that are missing, but we only need one, so I'm going to look for that, and that's going to be in UI, HUD, and then here's HUD messages.txt, and this is what we need. And I am going to just copy everything. Copy it all. And I'm going to open up Notepad now and paste it. And let me make the font smaller so it's not just it's not shouting at us. And I'm going to go back to the kind of the home page of this GitHub thing, and there's a couple of notes here that they say for us. So I don't think that anybody has fully combed through this to make sure that everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. As they say here, some string list may be formatted incorrectly, such as having new lines where it should have a new line character. And this isn't a definitive collection of string lists. Some will be missing, just like I said earlier. And here's one more thing that they point out that we need to keep in mind, is that when we save this, we want to save it as a text file, but we want to save it with this specific encoding here, the UTF-16LE. Let's go ahead and let's add our own custom messages. Okay, in Notepad, I'm going to just completely expand Notepad so it flashbangs us because it's so bright. I'm going to find the BR stuff so I can copy that and paste it at the bottom of this text file. And you'll notice that when we looked in Gorilla at that multilingual string list tag, there's that PS pickup ID, and then next to it is the equal sign and then the actual message. So that's how this is formatted. You have your ID, then an equal sign, and then the actual message itself in quotation marks. Now, another thing to keep note of is that this is a new line character. This bar and N is going to put a new line in that string. Another thing is that we have ampersand button action weapon primary. That way, that can just change to whatever button is mapped to that action. So that's what that is about. Now, probably the most important thing here is going to be this ampersand energy underscore sword. So for most of the vanilla weapons, this is how they're going to be identified, is that they're going to have an ampersand and then the name of the weapon, because that stuff, the vanilla stuff, is hard-coded into the engine from my understanding. However, new content such as the suppressed SMG and the brute plasma rifle and automag that has been added within the last year, have you'll see them use this weird triangle. Now, based on what font you're viewing this in, this triangle is probably going to look different. So if I go to Times New Roman, it's going to turn into a square. Now, why is that? And this is one thing that's very important to understand what's going on here. This character is the reference to this Unicode character that we put in our font files. So if I'll show you how that works. So the reason it's not showing us that icon is because the fonts we're using in Notepad don't have that character. It's not using this font that's in the font package. It's using a font that is just installed in Windows. So that's a very important thing to understand about how this whole system works. And as you can see here, the MP is for the regular Magnum. This was a vanilla weapon that was released with the game in 2007. And as you can see, ampersand Magnum, that is hard-coded into the engine. But the AM is the auto mag, which was just added by 343 in the last year. I believe in the last year. And since it's not hard-coded into the engine, they have that character there. So this is how it's going to basically work for us. So I'm going to find the battle rifle stuff. Here it is, BR pickup. And since we're making a battle rifle, like a different kind of battle rifle, this is perfect. This is what we're going to need. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this at the bottom of the list just so it's easy for us to find in the future, and it kind of separates the vanilla unmodded stuff from our modded stuff. So I'm going to add a new line here in Notepad, and I'm going to paste all of that. Now, one thing we absolutely want to make sure we do is that we make these IDs separate from the BR. So I'm going to put a BRT for everything. So BRT pickup, BRT swap, BRT picked up, and so on and so on. You want to make sure that these are different. These are unique from what you copied. So now we are actually going to go into changing the contents of these strings. Now, another thing I do want to make clear is that this BRT ammo singular, or for any weapon, if you have this ammo singular and ammo plural, I'm almost 100% sure that this stuff is just not used by the engine. This is kind of cut content in a way. Because when you pick up new ammo for whatever weapon you're holding, it's not going to give you this message. It's just going to show like it being added to the top on the top right of the HUD. This is stuff that's kind of left over from Halo 1 and maybe Halo 2. I think Halo 2 also had these messages, so you really don't need to worry about these messages. But we do want to worry about the pickup, the swap, the picked up, switch to, and swap with AI. So we are going to want to replace all the instances of this ampersand battle rifle with our special Unicode character that we added to the font. Now, the way we can get this character is that if we find the character in the font packager, and this is why we kept the font packager open, is because this is how we're going to access the character to be able to get it into Notepad. So that if you double click on it, it's going to copy that Unicode character to your clipboard. So now if I press Control V, it has pasted that Unicode character as that triangle, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to do that for all instances of the ampersand battle rifle. So I'm just going to keep highlighting it and replacing it with Control V to paste. And if there's, I think these are the final two. So there and there. And now, of course, we want to change the regular text stuff as well. So let's change picked up a battle rifle to picked up a tactical battle rifle. And again, since these are unused, you don't really need to worry about these, but I'm going to change them anyway for the sake of completeness. So tactical battle rifle and tactical battle rifle. Okay, let's save this now. So let's save as, and we're going to want to name it HUD Messages. And again, we want to make sure the encoding is going to be that UTF-16LE. It's very important that this is selected as the encoding. Let's save it to the desktop. Okay, we can close out of Notepad now that it's saved, and we can close out of Font Packager as well. And I'm going to close out of Google Chrome, close out of everything, so we have a clean slate again. So now we need to import our HUD messages as a multilingual string list into the Halo 3 editing kit. So let's open that up. And at the end of the day, again, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be replacing this vanilla tag with this, our text file. So this is going to be going away. But what we, again, as I said earlier, that's why you really want to keep these data.zip and tags.zip folders. So if you need to roll back to the vanilla tag, you can. You have that option. So let's make this ready to import. Now I'm going to put this, I'm just going to put this in my root graphics folder, this HUD messages.txt. Because we're going to move it around once it becomes a tag. So let's open up tools, so CMD, so we can convert this text file into a tag. Oops, what am I doing? No. Get out of here. Okay. I'm going to find that. Now the tool command that we're going to use to convert that into a tag is going to be strings, but I'm going to type tool S here, and we can see there's two different types. There's strings, source directory, and then strings localized. And strings localized is going, I believe that's going to have all the different translations for different languages, but since we're only going to be doing English, I'm just going to do the strings command here. And as you can see, it's asking for a source directory. It's not asking for a specific file, so when we're doing the strings command, we're just going to be pointing to the graphics folder. So tool, strings, and then just graphics. Hit enter, and here we go. Imported 467 new English strings. Okay, great. But of course, as expected, it didn't import any of these other languages, but whatever, that's fine. We didn't make any, so that's expected. So if we go back to our tags folder, and we go to graphics, here we go. We have our new HUD Messages Multilingual Unicode String List tag. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to go to the UI folder, to that HUD folder, and I'm going to replace this one with the new one. So paste, and I want to replace the file in the destination. So now we have our updated HUD messages list that has the information for our tactical battle rifle. Okay, so one more final thing we need to do is that we need to also replace the fonts, the font package X2 and font package X3 with our font packages that we made. So let's drag these in and let's replace these as well. Let's replace them. Okay, so we're done here. So we should be able to open up Sapien again. Let's just load out Chill Out again. Alright, Sapien is loaded, but I forgot to do one more thing. We need to change those references in Gorilla for our weapon. So we have our battle rifle tactical weapon tag here, and these HUD messages, new HUD messages. Again, we want to change this to BRT for all of these. So BRT pickup, BRT swap, so on and so on. Make sure that they are spelled correctly. And we'll save that. Now the weapon should be ready. So when we go into Sapien, let's add in our tactical battle rifle. So objects, items, weapons, let's add a new weapon. edit types, and let's add our tactical battle rifle. And that's going to be objects, weapons, rifle, add tags, done. Okay, now let's change that to a battle rifle tag. Alright, let's cross our fingers. Before we pick it up, let's pick up the regular battle rifle to see if the HUD message is working. And as you can see right there, hold E to swap for, and it has our custom icon that is getting it from that font file. So let's pick up the tactical battle rifle. So you can see it says picked up a tactical battle rifle. And yeah, this is all good. We're good to go. It's working as intended, as we expect. So we're done. You have your own custom icons and your own custom HUD messages as well. Now there's a couple things that I do want to point out. So the HUD messages tag, I believe when you compile a scenario into a map, when everything's done and you have your map, this HUD messages tag is going to be included in that map file, so you don't need to worry about that. However, here is a big thing to point out. When you are distributing your mod, and this is kind of going into mod compatibility, because I can see this really breaking where you don't... Mods could very well be incompatible with each other because they use different font packages. And I'll show you what I mean here. If I go to my Master Chief Collection install folder, I'll go to let me just find it here. It's always hard for me to find my Steam apps folder for whatever reason. And I go to the Master Chief Collection, Halo 3, and I go to Maps. There's that same fonts folder. And as I said, the HUD messages tag, I believe, is going to be packed into your map folder. So that's going to be fine. You're not going to have compatibility issues with other mods there, but where you may have compatibility issues is with the fonts. The fonts are shared globally across map files, as you can see. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that when you distribute your mod, you not only want to include the map file, but you're also going to want to include the font files that come with it, and different mods will use different font packages, and that's just something to keep track of, to keep in mind. And I don't know if there's really a way to fix this, because again, this is something that could very well be a mod compatibility issue. But yeah, so if you compile your map and you want to play it for yourself, you're not only going to need to, until we get Steam Workshop support or some sort of modding support, you're not only going to have to replace one of the maps here, but you're also going to need to replace the font packages as well, the fonts that you changed. So just a very important disclaimer to point out. But that will sum up this tutorial. So I hope you had fun, hope you had success with this. We're really getting a well-rounded, fully complete custom weapon here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. So I'll see you later.